Everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
3 easy to follow tips to add a little bit of flavor to your hand styles. That's gonna be the topic of today's video. But before we get into the video, listen to this warning because it'll save your graffiti career. I'm not kidding you. Alright, this is probably the most important part of the video. You're still gonna have to learn the fundamentals. This is not a replacement for learning the fundamentals. And even if you follow these 3 tips, you still won't have any control over your style and you still won't be able to develop a style. You have to learn the basics if you want to get style. That is the only way. Now, if you guys actually want to practice and learn those very fundamentals, you can check here on the channel. We have tutorials on each one of those topics, and you can check out the books we publish in the description down below. They're the best books on the market for graffiti. So tip number 1, don't jump directly to distorting the actual letter's structure. So instead of distorting the actual letter structure, let's go ahead and just lean the letter. Now, for a beginner, I recommend doing this one of 2 ways. You can either choose to lean the vertical lines of your letters or the horizontal lines. Both are going to result in very different looks, and you might prefer one over the other. And when you lean these, don't go too drastic. A very small lean is all you need. You don't have to knock your letters over to a 45-degree angle or anything crazy like that. And keep in mind, when you do lean them, keep them still on a uniform baseline. And make sure the letters are still a relatively same height and occupy the same space horizontally as well. This will help the uniformity and help the overall cohesion of one letter to the next. Tip number 2, add a little serif on some of your letters. Some of your letters where it's appropriate. Something like an O probably isn't really going to have a serif. Is it possible to do? Sure, but you have to go out of your way to make that work. As to where something like a B can very easily add a serif. Even letters like M can add a serif, or S or E. These are letters that can add serifs without pretty much any effort on your behalf, and it adds just a little hint of flair. Also, not every single letter needs a serif. Remember when we talked about in our letter uniformity tutorial where I taught you guys how letter uniformity has a bigger effect on flow. If you have a 5-letter name and you have just one letter with a serif, well then sure, that one serif isn't going to flow, so maybe you want to add a second or a third in order to help balance out the amount of serifs you have. And this flexibility allows you to do the serif where it's most appropriate and leave it off of the letters where it's not appropriate. Also, dudes, before we get into the next thing, check this out. We made a traveling sketchbook, a digital one that you can download for free over on the store. I'm really excited about it because not only do we have my dad's sketchbook from 1985 as the cover, but we also have a sketch of his in the book as well as some of your guys' work already in the book. My mission is to fill this book up with your guys' work and allow for you guys to download it freely. It'll be a way in order for the community to share their work, share their graffiti, no matter their skill level, and for all of us to kind of inspire one another as a community. So if you want to get in on that, download it in the description down below. I'm really excited about the whole thing, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. I also want to show my dad some of your guys' sketches. I'm sure he'll really appreciate it. He'll be psyched in order to see the awesome stuff you guys do. But anyway, back on topic. Tip number 3, mess with your mean line. So for those of you guys who are brand spanking new to graffiti, I highly recommend you check out my hand styles tutorial video where I talk about this a little bit more in depth. But essentially you have a baseline, a mean line, and a cap line. This is the bottom, middle, and top of your letters. What we can do is instead of having the mean line smack in the middle between the cap and the baseline, we can take that mean line and move it higher or lower. Now what this will do is it'll make the tops or the bottoms of your letters larger or more compressed depending on the direction you move the mean line. And this can drastically change the letter. Weirdly enough though, it doesn't really change the structure too much. It more so changes the distribution of weight and negative space of a particular structure. So as you can see in a normal letter R, the bowl of the R begins at the cap line at the very top of the stem, and then it comes around and down back at the mean line at the center of the stem. But if we take the mean line and we move it higher, suddenly the bowl connects higher up the stem, creating more negative space at the bottom. And if we take that same mean line, we move it down, the bowl connects lower on the stem and creates more negative space and weight at the top of the R. Now you do want to keep this uniform for pretty much all of your letters because, I mean, the mean line is pretty much for all of your letters to abide by. And that's 3 tips that you can start implementing right now to your graffiti to add a little bit of flavor. Now don't forget, you still want to learn those basics, and if you're keen on learning those, check out the best how to do graffiti tutorials anywhere online right here. And pick up some of the books we published in the description down below in order to jumpstart your pieces. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys back here next week.